Alright guys, welcome to Formula 1 News early video today because the Las Vegas Grand Prix practice day 1 went down over the night and big results going down, especially for Mercedes. Mercedes is somewhat confused why they are so fast, but Lewis Hamilton was absolutely buzzing after day 1 of practice, P1 in both sessions, after all the drama about the shelf life over the last few days. A big response from Hamilton today. However, will that change over the rest of the weekends? Are Mercedes back to being free practice merchants? And what's going on with Andretti, with big rumours emerging today they actually are going to get the spot on the grid after all. Very much into your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Let's just dive straight into that story there, because today Racing News 365 said, huge breaking news, F1 is set to welcome a new team. And they dropped the article that Andretti is coming in, basically. And people are like, okay, Racing News 365, pretty good source, pretty decent sources for sure, but maybe not like, oh, it's a slam dunk, this is definitely going to happen type thing. But yeah, they talk about how they understand in all likelihood that we will get an 11th team for 2026. This is a massive talking point. We've talked about this now for years, wanting a new team on the grid, especially when there's drivers like Valtteri Bottas and many others that are very talented drivers. Even Colapinto might not get a drive next year. There are seats that need to be taken on the grid by very talented drivers, and they are not available right now. Kind of confusing though why this is happening in the way that it has done, especially if this actually does go through, because there's been so much resistance, not really from the governing body. The FIA were like, they tick the boxes, they're coming in. Obviously we know that Michael Andretti was super gung-ho, as were Andretti, on hiring people, right? I mean, they've got a facility set up, like they've got a whole factory going on, Andretti. They've got cars in wind tunnels, they've got staff employed to run their program. It's like they're operating as if they're getting a spot on the grid, and I guess they've decided, right, we're going to fake it till we make it and just pretend we're making a Formula 1 car, and then F1 will be convinced that yes, we actually are. But the drama was, of course, with FOM, right, Formula 1 management. They didn't want to split the pie. We know that effectively it's a franchise now, right? We've got 10 teams, and each team gets, you know, a tenth, basically, of the revenue generated in certain aspects. And, okay, well done. If you bring in a new team, you cost a slice of the pie. Therefore, there's some sort of number which needs to be delivered to the teams in order to counter that out for a few years. It used to be like $200 million. Now the number that the teams want is more like $1 billion to compensate them for the losses. So it's kind of wild, actually. However, for various reasons, it was getting denied. We also heard the rumours on Greg Maffei, the boss at Liberty Media. He apparently said that he will prevent at any cost Michael Andretti getting an opportunity to get onto the grid. And we saw a few weeks ago now, Michael Andretti stepped down from his top role at Andretti and is taking more of a back seat in that organisation. And now, very shortly afterwards, we're hearing rumours that, yeah, this is a done deal, and it's very likely right now that F1 will grant a spot to General Motors on the grid in 2026. So, you know, Andretti, Cadillac, General Motors, whatever it's going to be called exactly, it seems very likely now that we will have 22 cars on the grid in just a couple of years. Not next year, 25, but in 26 for the new regulations. Apparently this will be the case. Now, there are rumours that they might not have their own engine. I think the plan is probably going to be for GM to develop their own engine in 28. So it's likely that they will be buying an engine in 2026. I know there were rumours ages ago that they were going to use the Alpine engines and that Alpine were going to have an actual customer, but that's not happening anymore because Alpine shut down their engine project. So is it going to be Mercedes? Like, what's going to happen? Are Mercedes going to have another team that they field? I don't really know, but that is the rumor anyway for 2026, 2027, that likely whatever this team is called will be effectively a customer team, but there will be another team on the grid. And AP are talking about it as well. I mean, when you get the Associated Press, when you've got the race, you've got Racing News 365, multiple outfits now talking about that, yeah, this is maybe not absolutely 100% locked in, but it's very, very close to happening. It's a big deal, and it does raise the question what exactly changed over the last few weeks. Well, we know that Michael Andretti kind of disappeared, and then there have been changes at the top end of Formula 1 management and Liberty Media as well. So there's got to be something in it. But at the end of the day, this does seem like it's going to be getting through. We know that, you know, there were court cases, there were legal disputes on whether F1 could actually do this. And given the fact that Andretti ticked all the boxes, the fact that they could turn them down was considered to be like a, monopolistic anti-competition practice type stuff. And, there was talk about the legal case that was ongoing due to that, which now seems to be maybe resolved if they just get the spot anyway. And just over the last few days, there have been more spots opened up as, we see here, Andretti are hiring in Silverstone a performance engineer, a race engineer. So, they've got, if you guys want to apply, feel free. But they've posted these jobs an hour ago, right? Like literally, like today, these jobs have gone up for listing. So that's got to say something, hasn't it? In terms of what's actually happening here right now in the world of Formula 1. Now, we've got to talk about Las Vegas practice though, because it's a big weekend. It could be the championship deciding weekends, and it could be a weekend where Ferrari try and make major progress and inroads on McLaren. But to do that, they will have to try and win and hope Mercedes don't get in the way, because right now that seems to be what the Silver Arrows are going to do based on practice. But of course, we've seen this before with Mercedes, but there's lots to say on it regardless. Now, Ferrari have a new low downforce front wing flat version. They also have a non-event specific floor that they're trialing out that we talked about yesterday. We know that there was all the drama about this whole shelf life remark over the last few days, what Toto Wolff said about Hamilton, and he actually did say that, well, it was out of context, and then he said that he'd actually, spoken with Hamilton personally about it to kind of like clear the air, I guess, and try and resolve the situation in some regards. But still, interesting comments, and it comes at a fascinating time for Hamilton because he's not had a good season and his Brazil was a disaster, and obviously this weekend's he's got to come back strong mentally and try and deliver a good performance, and so far that's exactly what he's got on to do. Now Bottas is going to get a penalty this weekend because he's limiting or exceeding his limits on power unit components, so as Michael says, probably knocks him out of contention for the win. So unfortunately for Bottas, P19 is going to turn into P20, and congratulations, Zhou Guanyu will have finally started ahead of the grid of Bottas, which has not been the case for a very long time at this point. But let's talk about what happened in practice, because happened overnight, of course, in the UK, got the opportunity to, watch some of it back in the morning, basically. But these are some of the highlights. Lots of lockups going into, I think it's turn 14. But Verstappen was struggling a bit. I think that it was one of the Saubers had a massive lockup as well, going into this tricky corner. But cold temperatures, cold tyres, not much rubber on the track. But to be fair, the lap times were pretty fast. Compared to last year, actually, at this point last year, the lap times were very fast. And Max Verstappen and even Red Bull were just not having a good time really at all. FP1 was okay. FP2 was a bit of a disaster. There was this as well when Sainz nearly, came into contact with Colapinto. This is through the final corner, a phenomenal corner. It is a risky corner just because, you're traveling round a corner with a wall on your right at absolute maximum top speed. Okay, no DRS, but there's top speed, and you're taking this flat-out left-hander, basically. If something goes wrong there, you are in the wall at 200 miles an hour. So it is a pretty scary corner, to be honest. But thankfully, both these guys were okay and there were no real incidents. We'll get to this here in a second, though, because at the end of the session, Lewis Hamilton tops the lot by a mile. Now, Mercedes were doing a lot of, quali sims and, fast lap sims compared to otherwise, but the car looked very planted. Hamilton seemed to have so much confidence just thrown into the corners. And this is the thing. It's not like Hamilton's forgotten how to drive. I mean, obviously Brazil wasn't good. There's been talk as well about the way these cars are, certainly when they're struggling somewhat to find the grip, that Russell's style is more beneficial to especially the way the current Mercedes handles than it is to Hamilton's. But at the end of the day, if the car is performing, as in if the car can actually go around a corner properly without oversteering, then Hamilton is going to be able to get some lap time out of it. And I think that's why Hamilton's still confident that, it ain't me, it's the car, basically. And obviously next year at Ferrari, it's, hopefully for him going to be a different story. But at the end of the session, first of all, the RBs were nowhere. 4 seconds off the pace, basically, slower than the Saubers, which is embarrassing at the best of times. Max was 5th in the end. Leclerc was 4th. Not a great day for the Ferraris. I know that Sainz talked about it afterwards and said that, we tried a few things, it's got a bit better. The single lap pace isn't really where they want it to be, Ferrari, at all, but their long run pace does look very good, and we know that overtaking around here is absolutely possible. So I think that even if Ferrari don't qualify great, I still think they're a real threat for the race on Sunday, or technically Saturday night, and in Las Vegas time. But Hamilton at the end put in a 135 flat, 4/10 ahead of Russell, and a second ahead of Lando. So, yeah, the Mercedes was looking very good. The second session then gets underway, and we've got lots to say on Red Bull as well, obviously, because Max is here in 5th. His second session even went worse than that. And this was Albon with an issue, he has to come to a stop. But this was the drama with Max Verstappen. It's funny with Max, isn't it? Because he's just about to win the championship. He might win it this weekend. If he doesn't win it here, he's almost certain to win it in Qatar. But as he says, I hate this wheel. It has this connection issue. The radio went on by itself. And yeah, the steering wheel sometimes randomly disconnects. So yeah, he was struggling with his car, Verstappen, in multiple ways. And even Marco said after the day that, yeah, they are struggling with various issues, and especially their rear wing. And we'll get on to discuss that in just a second after we close out this practice session. Shout out, by the way, to the Alpine guys. Obviously, they did a great job. I mean, phenomenal, unbelievable in Brazil to get the double podium. But again, Pierre Gasly cooking up an absolute masterclass here. So, gotta say, does seem like to me, I know that Ocon got the second place and Gasly was third in Brazil, but over the last few rounds, it's definitely been Gasly that's taken the reins on that one. And yeah, good result here from Gasly to come 6th in the second practice session. But it was Hamilton first again, Russell's third this time, and Norris in second. So the McLaren looking pretty good. I know that Lando was talking about the grip levels on the track, but yeah, I mean, look at these lap times. 1:33.8. I think the fastest lap time we saw in FP2 last year was in the 1:35s, possibly. So, you know, we're like 2 seconds a lap quicker already. Hamilton was at a 1:33.8, Lando the same, Russell just 2/10 back, then Sainz, then Leclerc, then Alpine in there, of course, well, Gasly in the Alpine 8/10 back, and no one else was very close. Piastri was a second behind, and where's Max Verstappen? Oh, there he is, down in 17th place, with Perez in 19th place, 2 seconds off the pace. Now, the long run data, which we'll see in a second, does paint a bit of a different story, as in, it's not like Red Bull are going to be, you know, adrift and not going to score any points this weekend. At least that's how it seems. But yeah, their single lap pace is not good, and that is a serious problem for the team. But yeah, Mercedes, they put things together. They even said after the session, we're not really sure why we were so good, which is a classic Mercedes, isn't it? They're like, well, we made it work, and obviously, Hamilton will surely be telling the team, look, guys, let's make 0 changes to this car, please. Like, let's not bring out the wrench and start making, you know, quarter-turn changes on some of these nuts. Like, you know, let's just leave it as it is. I'm sure that's what Hamilton's telling the team tonight, but it could be another Mercedes classic where they turn up to qualifying on of course, tomorrow, and Hamilton is, or tonight, I guess, technically, and then Hamilton is, you know, 7th and Russell is 6th, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, if that happens again, it's going to be genuinely unbelievable. And we'll discuss Hamilton's reaction here in a second. One of the main dramas, though, was on Red Bull, because they were at no man's land, basically. They're all at sea in the second practice session on a weekend where, you know, Max may well still win the championship if he just outplaces Lando in some regard. But Red Bull is losing 6/10 just on a straight line due to their rear wing. Now, to be fair, a higher downforce rear wing, it will help you in the race because it'll protect the tyres, but also it can make you a sitting duck in a straight line, because these are the straight line numbers. Ocon, Gasly, Sainz up here at 352. Okay, sometimes there's slipstreams here involved, but you know, we see that most teams 349, 348, Russell and Hamilton, you know, 340, 346, let's say, kind of middle of the road type thing, lower downforce spec. Verstappen and Perez, lowest of anyone, 343, 342. That's a pretty big deal, especially compared to Sainz, who's 10 kph faster. That is a serious issue for Red Bull, certainly because, you know, Red Bull used to have this mega advantage with DRS open. That is not how things presently stand. And apparently this is because they literally brought the wrong rear wing. They meant to bring another one, and they brought the wrong one. And they've turned up and they've got a wing with too much downforce on. And they can make a couple of tweaks to it, but there's only so much they can do. And this is one of those mistakes which is like, hang on a second, what are we talking about here? Because this is one of those things that if Ferrari did it, I mean, you know, they should get clowned for this. The Ferrari would be clowned. You'd never hear the end of it if Ferrari, prime Bonotto Ferrari, brought the wrong rear wing. But Red Bull, the giants, the juggernauts, the team that is just, going to win the drivers this year, but not going to win the constructors for the first time in quite some time, they've brought the wrong rear wing, and they just packed the wrong one. It's too steep, and they could bring another one out to correct it. That was the discussion today, that they, okay, well, whatever, they can just fly the other one out, right? You'd think they can just fly the other one out from Milton Keynes, and it could be doable. I mean, like the flight directly, the flight from London direct to Las Vegas is probably something like 11 and a half hours. You'd think you just, get Verstappen's private jet or something, and, maybe his private jet probably doesn't have the range for that. I don't know what you'd do, but there should be a way, probably, to courier it out in time, you'd think, but it would be very challenging to do because transporting rear wings isn't easy, and to get it on like a cargo plane that's going to take that route, or even to pay for some sort of, I don't even think, I guess you could do a private jet, but it'd have to probably stop over in, I don't know, like Newfoundland or something in Canada. I don't know what you'd do, but there might be a way to do it logistically. But Red Bull apparently are saying that we ain't going to even bother because Marco says we don't have another rear wing, a smaller rear wing as we see in our competitors. It would be more helpful for sure. And he was asked, could you fly one out from the factory? And they say, no, we can't do it. So, yeah, apparently Red Bull are stuck with it. And what they've got now, that's what they're going to be running with. And that's a problem, right? It's a problem. As I say, in race trim, more downforce can help, certainly in terms of race runs, because if we look at the short run data or the long run data in a second here for the race simulations, the Red Bull looks pretty competitive. The problem is that competitiveness coming in the wrong place, as in their lap time is maybe similar to the Ferrari, the McLaren, whatever, but what if they're just a sitting duck at the end of the straight? That's a problem, isn't it? Even if they're gaining time in the rest of the lap. So there was lots of reaction to the session. Lando says it's super low grip. I feel like I could drive a road car quicker than we drive at the minute because of the tyres, basically. But it is an interesting weekend for Hamilton, because after Brazil, he said, I don't even want to come back. It was so bad. And then he comes into this weekend and, with seemingly lots of confidence and optimism. I mean, Russell says it's an incredible day. I'd love to tell you why it was so positive, which is very interesting to me because it seems to imply that Mercedes have tried something. They've made a tweak or something with the car, and it's benefited them in some way. And because he doesn't want to say what it is, but clearly they've made some sort of fundamental adjustment that they hoped was going to get the most out of this car. And on day one, it's delivered what they thought it would do, which is, so it's super happy, Russell, with this. Lewis did a great job today. He's been on it since lap one. The car's been working, but being on a street track, it's really dirty, getting faster every lap. Doesn't mean we're going to be able to replicate it tomorrow. We've seen that before. And Hamilton echoes a similar statement and says, feeling good in myself. This I thought was funny. Coming into this weekend, I know it's not my driving, right? He's basically saying, look, I know it's not me, it's the car. And give me the car, I'm going to deliver the lap time. He said the car was feeling really good in FP1, FP2 less so we've got some work to do overnight. But so it's tough to know where we are. But at the end of the day, Hamilton ends the day, both sessions in P1. But these were the long run pieces of data. Now, difficult to read into this always. Hamilton was on the soft, so probably not quite as representative, really. But as we can see, Piastri 138.5, Norris 138.6, Leclerc 138.7, Sainz 138.5, 138.6, something in that ballpark. Verstappen, Perez 138.8, Hamilton, Russell 138.9, something like that. So looking very competitive. It's all going to come down to degradation, to be honest, in the race. But also, as I say, if it's true that Verstappen is, let's say, 3 or so tenths behind where the McLarens are, that isn't great. But in addition to the fact that if you're a sitting duck at the end of the straight, you're going to be eaten up by everyone, even if your overall lap time theoretically is quite good. So, very much interested to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.